Hi, everyone, and welcome to our second episode of our new show, Dialogues from the President's Corner, featuring Dr. Zarda, president of Greensboro College. In our first episode, we discussed Dr. Zarda, his background, both professionally and personally, and we wanted to shift our focus today to another area of the campus, which is admissions. And with that, we're pleased to welcome today our guest, Randy Doss, Vice President of Enrollment at Greensboro College, who we joined the college this summer. So how are you guys both doing today?
Doing great, Matthew. Hope you are.
Thank you.
Doing well. Beautiful fall day out there.
So nice outside. So just getting into it, so Dr. Zarda, why did you create this position, and what are your expectations for Randy?
Quick context, I think, would probably help Matthew. This is a very typical position at small private colleges. We did create this position over a decade ago, but the person we hired at the time, for various personal reasons, only stayed about 18 months and had to move on and actually moved to the Midwest. At that time, the college was in a position where I wasn't sure we really were positioned to hire a new VP. So the Dean of Admissions, Julie Schatz, who's been with us for very many years and is quite an asset to the college, ended up reporting to Robin Daniel, who was serving as Executive Vice President, Chief Operating Officer, and that worked pretty well. But Robin was planning a retirement, which he did execute during the pandemic. And that was not a time to try to bring in somebody at the level of a vice president during the early days of the pandemic. So I assigned admissions to Ann Hurd. And for a period of time, she was vice president for institutional advancement and admissions. That doesn't really work long term. That's too much for any one person. So my top priority became recreating the position of vice president for enrollment. We did a national search. We had three very strong finalists, but we had the finalist, in my opinion. That's Randy Doss.
Okay. Why do you believe among all those candidates, Randy was like the perfect fit for this position?
I'd probably have to identify three things in particular. Number one, his experience in virtually his entire career has been in private education enrollment, and that is somewhat unique. Secondly, he knows the region extraordinarily well. He knows North Carolina, the surrounding states, and the dynamics from K through 12 through colleges, probably as thoroughly as anyone that is out there. And third, this is not his first time at Greensboro College. He, like a couple of other folks, is back with us again after being away for a while. So I think he's one of those circumstances where there is a unique fit here.
That was actually like my next question for Randy. How does it feel to be back at Greensboro College? I know you were here from the mid '80s, like '90s. So how does it feel? Like, how has the college stayed the same, and how has it changed?
Well, a friend of mine said in this role, it must be strange and familiar all at the same time. And I think that's a pretty good description. It's very familiar, the wonderful attributes of Greensboro College in terms of its quality teaching, wonderful students, that unique mission of Greensboro College. But faces change, facilities change, and that's good. Things should change to a bit after a period of time. But it's been a wonderful adjustment.
That's great to hear. I know looking at like the role and responsibilities of admissions, like we're towards the end of the pandemic now. So what do you see as some like the biggest challenges towards like modern enrollment?
Well, I think the biggest challenges, and it is indeed a challenge, whether it's the Chronicle of Higher Education or various media outlets talk about the value of higher education. And there's all sorts of data, statistics about certain parts of the country and birth rates and all this type of thing. But there will always be a place for a quality, small, independent liberal arts college. And Greensboro College is in our 184th year and has given wonderful service to the city, the state, the country, and indeed the world. So it's a wonderful place for students. Challenges, there are always challenges, and you can focus on challenges or you can focus on opportunities. I like the latter.
Yes.
And there's wonderful opportunity here with this curriculum, the quality, faculty, leadership, and that's what drew me back here. Back to your question about challenges, I think the first thing in 2.5 months that I've been back, is really about fundamentals, like what happens when the phone rings, what happens when somebody wants to visit, what happens after a visit, all these checklists that we've been working on, in terms of the procedures of the day. And those, again, you could say challenges, but I think they're opportunities for clarification and follow through.
Can you talk about the admissions side of the college? I know you're returning, and you had just talked about what it means to be back after so many years. So, like, what's new in the department?
Well, new staff, and I we're really fortunate to have virtually now all of our staff are Greensboro College graduates. Some from as recent as the class of 21, some class of 17, some class of 89. And the key to admissions, I believe, is telling the story, because every higher educational institution has a story, and who better to tell the story than alumni? And so that has been something for me to learn new stories. I knew stories from the mid '80s, as you indicate, to the late '90s, and then I was away. Always kept up with Greensboro College, but to hear stories of more recent graduates and new faculty, and even some faculty who are still here, that's the key. That is really the talk about fundamentals. Is how do we tell the story of Greensboro College?
I know your team is out and about at high schools and various fairs, speaking with students about Greensboro College and telling our story and opportunities. Can you talk about what the modern student, like, how they make their decision regarding college?
That's a great question. And a friend of mine always said, Randy, your mortgage is almost based entirely on the decisions of 17-year-olds. And so they question my educational choice and direction in life. It's all about a connection and a feel. I've got a daughter in college. She's a junior. And I remember doing campus visits with her. And I remember her conversations and reflections after campus visits, ruling in and ruling out pretty quickly about who she met, how she was treated. And again, back to this feel of the place. And that's what we have to make sure happens. I think this is still a very emotional decision. It's one everybody wants to be in a place where they feel safe, and that's in every definition of that word. How we are able to convey that in different stages of the process, as students begin to probably in earnest think about college choice, 10th grade, and that buying cycle, if you want to use a business word in that particular definition. But how are they treated? How do they feel? And if we are fortunate enough to get someone on campus for a campus visit, that is the absolute gold standard, and we have to be 100% every time we have a campus visitor, and that's what I've really tried to concentrate on, is making sure everything is set, from tour routes to tour guides to classes to time of day to follow up, has been very important in these first few months of my return. And I do have to say, in terms of telling the story, I have been absolutely thrilled and humbled, I guess, in some ways, of alumni that I know personally, alumni I'm just getting to know, and their willingness to become engaged in this process. Just today, we have an alum coming back to represent us at a fair. We've had former students, alumni, represent us at various fairs in different states. We're trying to highlight them on social media, but hearing their stories and how 20 years out, that Greensboro College has impacted their life. And of course, what they're doing now, it's amazing. And that has been one of the major rewards here early on in this tenure of me back at Greensboro College, is all those alumni stories, and their willingness to help has been amazing.
I have seen, like, your counselors out and about, and I've also seen the social media posts. So it just see and like you said, it's so powerful seeing that connection after all these years still. So
Yeah, and it's interesting. This staff that we have in admissions came of age, if you will, during COVID, and you know, travel was limited, obviously. Connections with schools and school counselors and even alumni was incredibly limited, and so there's been this renaissance of getting back out on the road, making connections new, and even just the relationships we had before, getting people on campus, which of course was aborted during the pandemic. Um, so it's been very rewarding. We're exploring some new areas. We haven't traveled in, North Jersey or Connecticut, Massachusetts, even parts of some in Northern Virginia, and seeing those school counselors essentially say, "Where have you been?" And we're back in those areas, and really thrilled to be back in some of those areas.
That's excellent. And yeah, I know you guys are doing a great job. So thank you for coming by and just telling us about the missions. And we're so glad to be back at Greensboro College. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the second episode of Dialogues in the President's Corner. We are so happy to have Randy come in today to discuss the admissions process. Be sure to tune in 2 weeks from now on our YouTube page to see the next episode. Thank you.